Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 and our Chats with Emily. That's what we're calling our readings through the poetry of Emily Dickinson contained within the Johnson edition. We turned out a poem 459, A Tooth Upon Our Peace. By the way, here, tooth just simply meaning like attack, if you will, an attack upon our peace. This poem was first published in the Saturday Review of Literature, 9 November 1935. It's another paradox poem, and for that we'll be reminded of some previous studies that we've had. Our assumptions are that you've been engaged in our study at learnstrong.net. Down that left-hand side, Chats with Emily is our playlist. I'm hopeful that you've already worked through our set of introductory comments. I'm really hopeful that you're able to place this poem within the context of the previous study of our 458 poems. We just finished with 458, Like Eyes That Looked on Wastes. Now, this is another theodicy. If you followed our introductory comments, you know that in 303 we talk about our big five. What does this text say about epistemology, what you can know, ontology, who you are, psychology, the study of the individual mind, sociology, the study of the collective mind, and then finally the last of our big five, mini-arguing, the most important, is the question of theodicy. That is to say, why must there be pain and suffering in this world? And what is it that we can do with that pain or with that suffering? We're going to find ourselves challenged in this poem, I hope, to consider the fact that often pain is a propedeutic. It's instructional in some way. Guys, it's not that Emily is making the argument, hurrah for pain, not at all. But sometimes heaven is defined by the capacity to experience hell. We learned that, of course, in our study of Dante. We've given full lectures of the entire Divine Commedia at learnstrong.net. Let's enjoy the poem. She says it like this: A tooth upon our peace, the peace cannot deface. When then, therefore, be the tooth to vitalize the grace? The heaven hath a hell itself to signalize, and every sign before the place is guilt with sacrifice. Now, of course, the brilliance of the rhyming and the brilliance of the rhythm of this poem is self-evident. I think there's a lot of Milton standing here. I mentioned Dante already, but I think there's a lot of Milton in Paradise Lost that's also going on here. You'll remember the mind is its own place and can create a heaven of hell, hell of heaven. We've given full lectures of all of Paradise Lost at learnstrong.net. Notice we'll begin first of all with this attack or a tooth. It's a brilliant way to say it, right? In other words, being bit. When our peace is being bit. A tooth upon our peace. Notice our is capitalized and peace capitalized. The peace cannot deface, right? In other words, there are things that happen, you just got to live with them. When then, therefore, be the tooth. What is the point? In other words, what is the value of the tooth or the attack? To vitalize the grace. In other words, what is it that makes grace? Notice that peace and grace are somehow compendium. What is it that vitalizes this sense of peace or grace? It is, in fact, the very tooth, the attack itself. Then she'll say it, I think, very much channeling Milton and, of course, that conclusion of Book 1. The heaven hath a hell itself to signalize. Now, again, this is Emily channeling or somehow drawing from, making allusions to William Blake, of course, Songs of Innocence, Songs of Experience. We've given full lectures at learnstrong.net. Of course, it's the yin-yang symbol as well, isn't it, right? I mean, this idea that the heaven hath a hell. That every good thing has its opposite bad thing, right? Itself to signalize. It's an interesting word. In other words, that's our marker. If you really want to know how much heaven you have, look at how much hell you've gone through, right? And in that regards, of course, ball players understand this intuitively, don't they, right? Musicians understand it. Obviously, poets and artists understand it. And she'll finish by saying, and every sign before the place, right, both heaven and hell here, is guilt, G-I-L-T, lit with sacrifice. Well, it's self-evident, the observation that she's making here at 2a. Sacrifice makes suffering, but it also is the way that one gets to heaven. The paradox at 2b is fairly obvious. At 3a, well, here's our Dante. Not that we, as we said in our lectures of the Divine Commedia, not that we go to hell for Dante, but rather what? We go through hell. it is necessary to go through hell to get to Purgatorio, and then finally, of course, Paradiso, as we said in our lectures. Think about Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress as a backdrop to this. I mentioned, of course, Milton's Paradise Lost, the mind is its own place. Think about what Hamlet says to Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. We give him full lectures as well at LearnStrong.net. Nothing is good or bad, but thinking makes it so, he will say, you'll recall. And then finally, at 3b, to own a poem like this, when was a time that you made a heaven of hell? In other words, you were in a situation that was quite demanding, and through all of that demand, somehow you found yourself going through hell to heaven, and that signalized success. Thank you.